We're live and recording now. So just a hands up in the comment section on the right-hand panel. Can everyone see me and Eric right now? Okay. Okay, great. So we were under the impression that everyone was able to hear and see us. And we were saying all this, nice stuff about us giving an introduction before we start this event. And apparently no one could see us. So didn't know about that. As always, there's
always
a
great one-on-one. It was fantastic.
Okay, I think we can start now. If that's okay for you, Eric.
Let's do it.
Okay, perfect. So this is where we introduce ourselves. Hi, folks. I'm Shaf, and I want to welcome all of you to another No Code Ops event. And today we have the amazing Eric Goldman, co-founder of Sequin, hosting a workshop on the Airtable Interface Designer. And to give all of you an overview on how the event is going to go today, Eric will be taking over shortly and share what he has in store for us. And I'll be in the background mostly facilitating. And in the last 10 to 15 minutes of the event, we'll have a Q&A session so you can have your questions answered by Eric or myself. Also, feel free to kind of use the chat feature on your right-hand panel to key up your questions and we'll get to them promptly. And I can't thank all of you enough for being here and participating in today's workshop. So let's get right into it, shall we? Eric, the floor is all yours.
Awesome. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric. I'm in Los Angeles, so it's the morning for me, and I'm excited to chat with all of you. My goal today is to give you a really good sense of how Airtable interfaces work, and maybe just a little bit of context about me to give you some background about maybe why you can trust some of my explanations here. I was a product manager, led product for a company called Zephyr for 10 years. We used Airtable extensively at our company and built all sorts of internal tools on top of it. That was before Interface Builder came out. So then we've launched a company called Sequin, and Airtable is actually one of our primary integrations. We've worked really closely with Airtable over the past year to build our product. And as a part of that, we've become really tight with the Airtable team and the Airtable community, and have written up all sorts of guides about how to use Airtable and build amazing products on top of it. And we have thousands of customers that we work with every day to help them solve their Airtable issues and learn about how they're actually integrating it. So we have a pretty unique view into how Airtable can work and how to use it. And we've been enamored with Airtable interfaces. We think it's a really big upgrade to the tool. So this will be kind of a two-part process. I'll just give you a really good overview of how interfaces work if you're unfamiliar with them. And then we'll dig in and we're going to build 3 interfaces here at different kind of levels of complexity. But maybe the first thing I just want to do with the 11 of you, it's not, we're a pretty small group, so we can you can ask questions at any time, interrupt anything you need clarity on. I'd love to just run a quick poll with you all just to figure out the audience a little bit around how experienced you are with interfaces and Airtable generally. So I'm going to ask the question, which is basically how proficient are you with Airtable? And you can just basically vote that you, actually I'll ask the question, are you new to Airtable? Actually, yeah, how proficient are you with Airtable? And the question and the answers can basically be like, I'm new to Airtable, I'm intermediate, and I'm advanced. And this will just kind of give me a little sense of, I don't want to bore you with like the basics if everyone here kind of knows what's going on. So I'll start this poll, and if you can just answer that really quick, that'll just help me figure out what to do. Democracy at work right here. This is great. Okay. I think we're just waiting maybe for one more vote, but it sounds like new and intermediate is the way to go. Okay. Perfect. So I'm going to share my screen and let's dive in. And if you have any questions, comments, leave them as we go, and we will answer them as we go through this. So I'll share my screen. I need to finish the poll. One sec. I need to end the poll. There you go. Okay. Okay, great. So you should all see a deck right now. And so let's dig into kind of how Airtable interfaces work. So first on Airtable, if you don't know, Airtable is a relational database with the ease of use of a spreadsheet. And Airtable interfaces are a new tool to build, there's really no other way to say it, to build interfaces or kind of user experiences on top of the data you have in your Airtable base. And it makes it much easier for different users in your organization to work with your Airtable data. And I'll dig into that in more detail in just a minute. But a couple of the key things you need to know about Airtable interfaces is, first and foremost, base owners and creators can build them, but other users that just have view access, they cannot build or create interfaces. It's really just for the base owners and creators. The second thing is it's completely no code. It's just drag and drop, click interfaces. You don't need to do any Airtable scripting if you don't want to. You don't need to build any automations. You don't need to use the API. You don't need to use the custom app SDK. It's completely no code. You can build many interfaces per base. So you can create different interfaces for different kinds of users. It's not just one interface for the entire Airtable base. And it's accessible to anyone with an Airtable account. And the key detail there is if you're trying to create an interface for example, an external client or someone that doesn't actually have a login credential to your Airtable account or Airtable base, they won't be able to access the interfaces right now. It's very likely that'll change in the future. But for now, while Airtable interfaces are technically in beta, they are only accessible to you and your team. So this is the main problem Airtable interfaces solves. Right now, if you have a base and you have a bunch of different teams or users or people that need to access that base, for each group of users, you need to create views for them. You need to set up permissions for them. And maybe you need to set up specific apps or dashboards for them in the apps dashboard section of Airtable. And this can create a lot of problems in your Airtable base because you have different users that need to access different things. So you end up needing to create tons of different views. And then you need to basically teach each user group how to access Airtable. So you need to make sure the executives know how to access their dashboard. You need to make sure the salespeople know which tables to interact with and which tables not to interact with. And there's always this risk of you getting the permissions wrong or something getting broken. And they also need to navigate through this entire Airtable base. And then maybe the marketing team just needs to access one table, but you can't really just expose one table to the marketing team. So you really have to teach everyone in your organization how to use Airtable, how to get familiar with how the base was set up. And what ultimately happens is you have to really kind of muddy the data structure of your Airtable base. In computer software programming or in computer science, there's this concept of DRY, which is don't repeat yourself. And Airtable makes that really hard. So often what you need to do is in the accounts table, you need to show a lot of information about the contacts. And in the context table, you need to show a lot of information about the opportunities. When in an ideal world, you would just keep all that data in one place and just aggregate it together into one interface for the specific user or use case you need to solve. And that's kind of where interfaces come in. Instead of asking different teams or members of your team to learn how to use Airtable, to figure out how the base was configured, to determine how they enter and put in the information they need, you can build a specific interface for each user type, and they can access data from across the entire Airtable base in one simple view. And that makes it so much easier for them to do their job, to be efficient, to get the information they need or to update the information they need, and just use Airtable as a complete platform as opposed to making it just a better spreadsheet. It really turns Airtable into a place where you can build tailored apps for your team. So it's really helpful in that way. So there are some limitations with interfaces. It's really great at showing data, but it isn't great at two other things, which is surprising and will hopefully change in the future, but you should know this right up front. If you're trying to create and delete records in your Airtable interface, you can't really do that. You'll still need to use some sort of other tool or other kind of set of Airtable features if you really want to do actual create and delete functionality. You can absolutely update records. That's not a problem. But this whole process of actually generating new records isn't super simple. You'll want to use almost a form or something like that to really generate completely new records. The second thing is there aren't built-in buttons or logic. So you can bring buttons into interfaces, and I'll show you how to do that. But you need to do that by first adding the button to the underlying Airtable base. But there's no just like add a button to your interface, which is another surprising limit. But it is in beta. It's likely these things will change. And so those are just two limitations you should know about right away when you're considering when to use an Airtable interface. So let's get into this and build some interfaces. There's really a really simple flow. I've published a little tutorial on how to do this. So if in this work session you want to kind of review this again later and you aren't taking ravenous notes, which is totally fine, you can just read about it right after. And also Airtable has a fantastic workshop you can consider as well. But the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that the base you're working with is structured in a way that will present the data to the interface properly. And I'll show you, it's very simple, right? Basically, you want to show a field in your Airtable interface, or you want to filter by a field in your Airtable interface, you need to make sure it's in the underlying base first. Very straightforward. Second thing is you'll build your interface, very straightforward. It's drag and drop, and you'll set up the right way. And then the last thing you'll do is you'll want to test and then publish your interface. And the beauty of a published interface is your users, so whether they're executives, another part of your team, another part of the ops team, marketing, however it may be, they never even have to look at the base. They can go straight into the interface and they never have to look at the underlying data or spreadsheet. So with that in mind, what we're going to build today is we're going to take an Airtable CRM, which is I think it's a really common kind of understood tool. And we're just going to take it to the next level by building 3 quick interfaces on top of it. The easiest one is going to be the one we build for executives, which is just a quick executive dashboard that shows the metrics and performance of the sales team. The second tool we'll build, I would say, is a little bit more intermediate, which is making it much easier for a sales rep to see their specific accounts and the status of those accounts and kind of manage that workflow for them. And then the last would be a little bit more advanced, which is it kind of combines interfaces with buttons, with apps to just make it easy for a marketing person to maybe send some emails to some customers. That's the overview of what we're about to build. Before I dive in and start building it, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just really quickly pause to see if anyone has any questions about interfaces at a high level before we dig in. Looks like that all made sense for the most part. Okay.
I thought it was clear. So good job.
Cool. Well, let's build some interfaces, and I've prepared some of this, but we're going to kind of do it live so that I didn't do a lot of behind the scenes food prepping, so you can just really see what it looks like to build each one. So in terms of any questions, just bring them up as we go, and I will go from there. So first things first is we're going to start with the template, the CRM template that Airtable provides. So this is the one. And it's a very simple template. I think starting with the template is helpful. So if you want to reproduce these steps, you can. So you'll just find the sales template, and I'm going to add it to my workspace here. And it's going to add that base into my workspace. So we can skip all of this. We can hide this. So this is a base. Let's just first quickly talk through the structure of this Airtable base. It's pretty straightforward. And it really kind of flows actually right to left. So contacts, let's just say this is, some sort of company that's selling something. These are all their different contacts. And contacts are tied to accounts, which might be the overarching organization. And then each account is tied to an opportunity, and then an opportunity also has interactions. So in this case, an opportunity might be a new sales opportunity to sell something into one of the accounts, and interactions are kind of tied to each opportunity as the sales team is working with the customer and the contact at that account to make a sale. So let's say we want to first build an interface that's specifically intended for the executives at the company, or just generally the entire company, just to see the performance of the sales team. Now, historically, you could do this. This isn't something that's like radically new. You could go over here and add in these apps to a dashboard. And in fact, this template comes with some nice pre-built out tools here in terms of like how many deals have closed, what's the estimated deals by owner. The challenge is that this information is a little bit hard to find. It's on the side rail. It's not structured as a dashboard. You kind of have to scroll through it. It's not kind of all on one pane. And you have to give someone access to all of this other sensitive data. And sure, you can go in and set permissions for each one of these tables. Absolutely, right? You can do this in locking the views, but it's not as easy as just giving them a dashboard to go to that just gives them the information they need. So that's where interfaces come in. So interfaces live up here in the top left corner. You click into them and you'll just click start building. So we can call this each interface is kind of a group of actual interfaces, as you'll see. So I'll call this like on the CRM Super Center or something like that. And just to kind of make it nice, I'll give it a color and we'll give it some sort of little something. I'm not going to give it a description. So now you've kind of actually set up an interface group. That's the first step. You don't build a one-to-one interface. You kind of set up an interface group for the base, and then you actually create a new interface. So there's 4 templates here. We're going to start with a dashboard, which is a high-level view of your data. And this will just give you a sense of kind of how the flow works. So we'll start with the dashboard. And it's going to kind of pre-set up the dashboard for you, which I find is just fine, right? Because we're starting with a template. And I do think the main table we want to work with is opportunities. But as you'll see, we can bring in data from any of the tables throughout the process of building an interface. And for now, I'll kind of allow it to bring in all of this different data. And maybe I'll just take off the filter for now. Just so you can kind of see the basics of setting this up, and then we can work with dynamic data in the next step. So I'll just call this, executive dashboard. So this is me naming the actual interface I'm building. It's a little confusing that there's this concept of a group, and then you're building interfaces under each group, but that's how the structure works. So here you have this kind of preset interface. Each one of these little boxes or elements on the page or UI elements is known as an element. You can easily add new elements if you want. So let's say I want to add a divider. I can just drag and drop that onto the screen. I can position it as I wish, across the different, like I can make it as, full width. I can make it narrow. I can delete it. It's pretty simple to just drag and drop elements on. Then, as is probably intuitive to you, when you click on a specific element, you can then begin to edit it. So let's first set this up. Let's say we want to show them how many opportunities are actually active. So these are actual, they haven't been won, they haven't been lost, they're still actively in the process of being sold to. So we'll make sure it's connected to the opportunities table. We'll add a quick filter here to make sure that it's actually showing the data we want. So we only want to look at the status, where the status is any of the options other than closed won or closed lost. Because if it's qualification, proposal, evaluation, or negotiation, we know that it's still in the works. Great, easy to do. We'll do a record count. Light green looks fine to me. And there you go. You've configured that metric. And actually, one other thing that I need to do there is I should probably say active opportunities, right? And then we can just repeat this process. Let's say we actually also want to show how many interactions have happened this week. So I can now go here. The source is interactions. This is where things get pretty cool. In one view, we're able to look across another table, where before, to get this, you'd kind of have to scroll across a couple different panes of information. So we could just do all interactions. This template that we're working off of, this base template's from like 2018, pre-pandemic, whole different time of our life. So if I were to go, for example, if I wanted to filter on date and time, and I just wanted to see all the interactions, maybe in the past, let's say like 30 days, it's going to show 0 because all the interactions happened a long time ago. But you can see how quickly it is to maybe create a quick field here where interactions last 30, something like that. And then you can just keep working through each thing. So let's maybe take a look at this pie chart. Let's say we wanted to do a pie chart off the opportunities table. We actually want to show, again, only active opportunities. So we'll go back to filtering it down to status, and the status is none of closed won or closed lost. And the value that we actually want to break it down by is the account owner. So we're going to see how much each salesperson is doing. And the record, the field summary we actually want to do. So instead of just counting the number of opportunities, we actually want to see how much money each salesperson has on the line. So we'll do a field summary by estimated value, and we can actually just do a sum. And they have some nice little color schemes in here. So we can do something like that. And there you go. We have it set up. So now you can see how each different salesperson is doing. And we'll just kind of keep updating each individual field, but you can get a pretty good sense for, how many opportunities, how to kind of create each one of these metrics on the dashboard. So let's say we just wanted to kind of replicate what was already on the base, which is the total amount of money won. So here we can do opportunities again, but we'll add the condition that the status is actually closed won. And we'll do a field summary where we look at the actual, I believe it is actually still estimated value. And we'll do a sum. There you go. And maybe we'll do this in green. And it already, I deleted it. So now I get the opportunity to show you how to add it back in. The way that I sometimes do that is you'll just kind of come over here. It's a number. You can drag it in. So I just need to reconfigure that really quick. So we'll do opportunity status is closed won. And the field summary is estimated value sum. We'll just make it green. And we'll just say won deals. So this is how easy it is to create a dashboard. Now, going through the steps, we've set up the base. We didn't really have to edit the base at all to do this. We've built the actual dashboard, pretty simple, nothing crazy. And now we can preview it to see kind of what it'll look like. Easy enough. And then we can publish it. So if you don't publish it, it won't actually be visible to anyone, and it'll only be visible to the owners and the collaborators that have the ability to create interfaces. So you'll want to go ahead and publish it to the actual base or to your workspace. And so here we're publishing the executive dashboard. We want to publish the changes. When you publish, you actually publish all the interfaces you create within this CRM Supercenter group. So you can either choose to actually publish an update, or if you're kind of in the midst of making a bigger update, you can choose to do nothing. But here we actually want to publish the update. We can send an email to a bunch of people letting them know that we actually created it. That's not really necessary. But here we have a quick interface. And just to kind of show you how this works, if I go actually I'll go back to the base and back actually to my workspace. And what you will see if I refresh this, I believe, is here it is. The interface is instantly accessible without having to even figure out what base it's tied to. So that's pretty nice. And I can come in and I can see exactly who it's, I can see this exact information. So it's pretty easy in that way. If I edit, there are some abilities to continue to edit it and improve it. So you can always change it or make continued improvements. You can always test when you're testing. You can see it from different people. Here, we don't have anything dynamically tied to any specific user, but it's pretty easy to go in and kind of edit and improve your specific interface. If you want to delete it, the process to actually go ahead and delete it would be first to unpublish it, and then you can delete it. But that's the building blocks of building an interface. So I'll pause here again before we go in and build a slightly more complex interface, just to see if there's any questions about that general flow or anything we should kind of talk through in deeper work. Let's see.
Feel free to leave your questions in the comment section, you guys, if you have any questions so far.
Looks like so far this all makes sense. I hope you're beginning to see the power of the Airtable interface. Airtable is really the de facto no-code database, and interfaces are really the first way to begin to build a user experience on top of that database. And it's not like you're building complete applications, I would say, because of very minimal logic, right? A real full-bore application is your database, business logic, and an interface. And obviously in Airtable, you can build business logic. You can write scripts. You can write automations, which add that business logic into your Airtable base. And then through the interface, you expose it through an application. But the interface itself is really more right now, because it's not deeply tied into that business logic. It's not really functioning as an application per se, more as just a user interface. So let's dive into a slightly more complicated interface.
Eric, we have a couple of questions in the comment section. So if you want to go through really quick.
We have some questions. So first, if you duplicate an interface, can that dupe only be used for the particular group that the interface is under? This is a great question. Anna, let me actually share my screen. We'll actually confirm together. So if you go in to your interface, and it always kind of gets me how this navigation flow works. So back to overview, I click into here, edit, and I go here and I duplicate it. It's going to duplicate it right into that same group. So I got interface number 2, and I go back to overview. You'll see they're both here. The second one isn't published yet, so I can go back into it, and I'm just going to delete that. So when you duplicate an interface, you just duplicated into that same group. There isn't really this ability yet to take an interface that you build within a group and then move it to another group yet. I really anticipate these are things that'll be coming. Because an interface is so tied to the underlying base, it'll be tied there. Another good question that you might have there is, if I duplicate my entire base, will all the interfaces on that base duplicate? I don't know. We will do that at the very end to see if that actually happens. Another good question from Phil: biggest difference between interfaces and Softer/Stacker? So I've had the pleasure of working with both the Softer and Stacker team. You actually might have seen that Softer raised a really nice financing round the other day. So they're actually continuing to grow, and they're a fantastic team. The big difference is interfaces will continue to present your information as we were just kind of talking about. So you have your Airtable base, and then with an interface, you can create a user experience. It doesn't include a lot of that business logic, which Softer and Stacker will help you build in terms of some filters or dynamics of what data to show which user when. Softer and Stacker definitely have more capabilities there. The second big difference is Softer and Stacker allow you to expose your Airtable data, a whole set of users that you manage in Softer and Stacker. They don't have to access your Airtable base. They have no idea that the app is technically powered by Airtable. They don't have an Airtable login. They'd only have a login through Softer and Stacker. And so you're able to expose that data through like a client portal. Airtable interfaces will only, at least for the moment, be accessible to people with an Airtable account. And you can see in the Airtable community that it's very likely they'll actually allow Airtable interfaces to be exposed to the public, like fully accessible just on the open internet. Right now, Airtable interfaces are only accessible if you can log into the base, which means you have to have an Airtable account, which means you have to be a paying Airtable customer. And Softer and Stacker, one of the bigger problems they're solving there is making it easy to build applications on top of Airtable as a database, building all of that software logic in, but also exposing it to a very large audience of users that don't have Airtable access. So you can see that in the future, Airtable will likely begin to address that use case and make interfaces exposed to the outside world. But right now it's for internal tools. Great questions. So let's dig in and build a slightly more complicated interface. And this one will have some dynamic filtering so that you can kind of see the next use case we're trying to build. So I'll share my screen again. And let's say, so we've built our executive dashboard. The team can see how the overall pipeline is working. Now let's build a tool just for sales reps so that they can manage their accounts better. And first, let's kind of talk about why you'd want to build this tool. So let me go back to the base. Let's say to actually build, your sales team is constantly clicking across these tabs to manage their accounts, right? So they have an opportunity, they need to go over here and create the opportunity and set it up, and then they need to go over here to interactions, and now they need to go to accounts, and maybe one way that they're getting around this is they're opening up the actual opportunity and kind of using this whole kind of layered approach to see all the information tied together. But at no one time in this Airtable base can they see all the information associated to one opportunity. They always have some of that information hidden from them. So one way that they could try to make that a little bit better is they could keep creating more and more and more linked records or lookup fields, but that's just not a very healthy data practice because things are getting very convoluted. So the interface really helps you do this in a much cleaner way. So we'll go back into our CRM Supercenter. We'll edit this group of interfaces. We're going to create a new one. And here we're going to do the record viewer. I do highly recommend mostly working off of these templates. Blank absolutely works, but the templates really get you started with the real use cases that interfaces supports right now. We'll tie this one to opportunities, but we're going to add a filter here. which is we're only going to use the opportunities where the owner is the actual current user. That is a really, really nice filter that doesn't exist today easily in your Airtable bases. So when someone comes into this interface, they'll only see the opportunities tied to them. And let's say we just really want to show, again, opportunities that are active. So we'll add another filter here where the opportunity status is none of the closed statuses. So we have all of that set up on this interface. And maybe just to make it kind of easy to organize, we'll just sort it by priority for now. We can edit that all later. Now you'll see my little preview here is empty. That's because there are no opportunities tied to me, but we're going to fix that in just a minute. We'll let them pool in these basic fields. I think it's always helpful to have them pool in some of the information. And we'll call this the sales rep pipeline, something like that. So now I have it set up, and it's not super easy to build on it right now because I don't have anything tied to me. That's where this view as option at the top is very helpful, because as soon as I turn that on, it'll begin to pull in the information as if I was viewing this dashboard as a specific user. So very helpful. Now, what I'm seeing here on the left is the different opportunities, and this element's kind of nice because it's preset with a search. So if there's tons of opportunities here, I can see it right away. You can see that we can re-edit the actual filter and sort. And one option you have is you can always just replicate the data in this specific element from a view that's tied to the underlying table. For now, the other thing you can do is you can actually kind of edit how it looks. So I think showing the opportunity name makes sense. I think showing the status makes sense. And then it is sorted by priority, but I also think it'd be helpful to see that actual priority status. And then we can kind of color the records by different indications. So maybe one way to do this is we could color it by the actual priority, and then we can hide that priority and instead show something like the estimated value. So that might be a nicer way for them to see it. The thumbnail, we don't really have any image fields here, so we can't really show that, but that's some nice ways to see that. Now we can see all of the different opportunities. Now let's make it really easy for the salesperson to see all the information tied to this opportunity. So here's where we're going to go in and add in some elements. So you can always add in new design elements here on the left, but what we'll really do is we will add in different information that's tied to this underlying record. So we can add in something like, we can see the account it's tied to, but maybe it'll also be helpful to see the interactions on the account. So let me click that, and we will show that as a field. And we'll just put that right here for now. So now it's pulling in all the interactions. We have the account. Another element that would be nice to see here, which is on a whole other table, is the contacts. So I will go and actually, I think we can do the primary contact for it. Let me see really quick. So this is the primary contact on the account, but we can also actually go in and show all the other contacts tied to this account. And the way that we would do that is we go to add elements. We would do a record picker, or actually, I don't think it actually is a record picker. Sorry. I believe it would be I don't think it'd be account. Actually, I think that might be the way that we would do that. Yeah. Yep, that would do that for now. So we can see the primary contact, we can see the interactions, we can see information about the actual account. We can change the way that these are actually laid out, so we can make this wider and kind of drag it across to the width of the screen if we wanted to. We can change if this is an editable piece of information. So I would say it probably doesn't need to be editable because this is actually the tied to account on it. But we can kind of change the different size. So you can actually make it smaller or larger. You can change the label if you want it or don't want it. So we could call it, I think accounts just fine. And this is actually tied to the record list. So let me just explain how this little element is working. It is tied to showing whichever account is in the selected opportunity in this record list. That's how this is set up, right? So if I were to go and actually change this to actually showing opportunity name, it would show something completely different. But if I just have it show account, then it's going to show that full information. So the dynamic flow here is I'm only going to see opportunities from the logged in user, and then I'm only going to see the information on this page for the selected opportunity. So it's pretty nice in that way. Basically, Casey Park can see almost all the information for this specific opportunity in one view, and we can make it even better and help her see more information by showing different fields here. So she already knows that she's Casey Park. So we can kind of replicate a couple pieces of information here. So we can reshow the status. Maybe we can make this editable so she can really quickly go in and change the status of the account. We can make it large so it's easy to see. So now Casey can go in and actually change the status of the account. That's pretty nice. We can go in and then add in some more elements here. So we can go in and add the priority. Oh, but it's actually already there, sorry. So I'm going to click and delete these. We can go in and add in, so we have the status. Maybe we'll let her also change the priority. Make it editable. We'll do large. And maybe another nice thing that would be really helpful for Casey is to actually go in and change the estimated value. And we can put these editable fields right at the top. Again, we'll make it editable. We'll make it large. And now in one simple view, if I go in and preview this, Casey can go in and update things and change the value of the records, and then also see deeper information all in one view. And it's a really easy, simple interface for her to maintain everything tied to her pipeline and where it's at. So maybe another interesting thing to do here would be to actually have her be able to create interactions, right? Maybe one of the main things that she needs to do for her team is every time she has a meeting, make sure that she updates the opportunity with that information. So again, you can make that editable. We can either do it small or big. I think it's kind of helpful that it's large. And so if she goes and has another call, she can actually edit that here. So we can go to add record, and she could either associate it to an interaction she's already had, or she can create a new one, which is really nice. So this is kind of the extent to which you can create a new record. It's not easy for her to create an opportunity, but she could go in and create a new interaction and set this all up, right? She could link it to a contact and do all of that in this interface. So it's really a nice view that's taking information from across the entire Airtable base, presenting it and making it editable all in one experience. So I'll publish this for now. We'll publish changes here, but we don't need to do anything on the executive dashboard in case I can't really do anything because I haven't touched that one. And I'll publish the changes. So now, just to walk you through the full flow again, if I go back to the overview, we now have these two different interfaces. And if I go to the base, which then I think this flow is kind of the funniest one, which is I have to go back to the base, back to the main page. But then if I click into my Sales Supercenter, there it is. again, for me, I don't have any opportunities. So, but if Casey Park comes back in, or Logan, right, they'll see all of their opportunities. So that's a more dynamic flow. I'll stop there again, see if there's any more questions here in case we should pause on anything. Looks like that all made sense for the most part in terms of how to set up that kind of interactive interface and how that might work. Can you add the sales rep pipeline interface as a link option to expand within the executive dashboard? Not at the moment. Actually, no. Yes, you could. That's a great question. Here's how you would do that. Sorry, let me share my screen. So this will be a little bit of a hack. I've never actually done this before, but one way you could do that is just going through that build phase again. So if we go back to the base, actually the first thing I need to do is I'm going to go into the interface. I'm going to get that sales rep. You were asking if I could put the executive dashboard. Let me go back to a link to that through the executive dashboard. Yes. So I'm going to go to that sales rep pipeline. I'm going to click this share link. And actually the link here should be a permalink, right? Because you can see this navigation path is static. There's no like query parameters in there. Here's the Airtable base and this is the app. So if I copy this, and then I go back to the base, and then I'll go to add a new field here, and it's going to be a URL type. It'll be link to sales pipeline. And that link is going to be it's going to be the same for every opportunity. So this is where things are a little clunky, but then I'm just going to select this entire column and paste it in. Then I could create a button. So I'll go here, button, and it'll open a URL, and I'll make it green text. And the URL it's going to open is that link to sales pipeline. So now I have this button. It's not the open URL is not very obvious what that's going to do. So let me actually customize that a little bit more. And the label will be, I'll just put a little arrow in there and it'll be sales pipeline. Save that. Now just to test it out, if I click this, you'll see it takes me straight to the pipeline. Pretty cool, right? So now to make sure that we get this into the executive dashboard, I'm going to go to the executive dashboard. I'm going to click edit. I'm going to add an element. It's going to be where is it? It should be a record picker. I think it's a record picker. I'm going to go open URL. There it is. Got it. Okay. So now I have my sales pipeline button here. We'll make it large. And we don't really need the label there. So I need to delete that. Oh no, I guess we do need that somehow. We need that filter somehow in here. So that's because there's no actual record tied to this. So yeah, here's what's going on. We want to add a button that's tied to a specific record into this dashboard. So another way that I guess I could put this in here is I could just do a text field and I could just paste in that link here and I could make it a hyperlink. So I could actually do something like link to sales pipeline. Put that little arrow. And then I could actually make it like a large heading just to make it big. And I could make it bold. And then I could put some link here. So that would be one way to link to it. I think that this would actually be the easiest way. And then just to kind of make this all look okay, maybe I put it right at the very top for now. And so then if we were to publish this or preview it, if I were to click this, it should take me straight to that page. So that would be one way to do it. It would be basically to do that link field. It's not beautiful, but because it's a dashboard, for you to add a specific record field into the dashboard, you would also have to have the ability to select a record, which wouldn't make that much sense on that page. So I know we're actually coming up to time. Built 2 dashboards. The last one would be a dashboard that allows you to email your customers, which would just be kind of adding a button like I just showed to the page. So I actually think those 2 dashboards really give you, or interfaces give you, a really good sense of actually how to use interfaces in terms of updating the base, building the interface, and then publishing the actual interface. And then anything that exists in that underlying base can then be exposed into the interface so that you can actually build these tools for your team. So I know we're coming up to the hour, so I want to pause there and just see if there's any other questions about how to use interfaces, what you should use them for, or when you shouldn't use them. And so you can think about those. I'll tell you a couple things that you should keep in mind as you use interfaces now that we've kind of built them. They're very easy to use. You really can't go wrong. So they've now exposed interfaces to everyone can use them. I highly recommend you give them a try. You can't break your base easily by building an interface. So give it a try and see what you can build. The one situations where you really shouldn't use an Airtable interface too much is, again, if you really have a heavy use case where you need to create records, like you mostly want to create an interface for people to create a lot of records, the best thing to do is still use an Airtable form to get that data into your database or into your Airtable base. If you really need a lot of logic, like if you need to have a person input something and then based off of that input change what the next question would be, you still need to use something like the scripting block or, again, a custom SDK app to do those. Neither of those 2 things are low code or no code. So the logic is still very tied to needing to use scripting blocks or automations, and hopefully that'll change in the future. But if what you really need to do is build an internal tool for your team to make it easy for them to build something, an interface is a great way to go.
Sounds good. Does anyone else have a question? Oh, I'm on board.
Hey,
Hey,
this
Phil.
was amazing.
Cool.
Anna and I are over here at the Atlanta office just being like, this is so good.
You're blowing my mind.
Great. Good.
Like,
Happy to
cannot
hear.
wait to build all of these things.
It's really easy. Airtable's done a fantastic job.
And just so helpful to see like where this excels versus like the softers and Sackers of the world. Like so helpful to see. Just like, for me, interface was something that I saw that I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get involved in that. And then I was like, there's so much to learn, I feel like. So this just gave me a foundation to start playing with stuff. So thanks in advance.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I would say the big thing there is if you and your organization are paying for all your Airtable users, like let's say you have an enterprise plan, which is not uncommon at this point.
We do.
Then an Airtable interface is the way to go, right? You already are paying for all your Airtable users. They're already accessing the data. You just want to create better workflows and interfaces. The interfaces are the way to go. If you mostly want to expose your Airtable data to tons and tons of customers external to your Airtable base that don't have a login, that you're not paying for accounts, then Softer and Stacker are key tools for you. And even though they'll kind of overlap in providing a lot of the same value, that difference in use case is really where you would consider them differently.
So awesome. I know we have like a minute left here, but to 2 things. One, I just wanted to thank Shaf for Shaf crushed it. This was awesome.
Thank you.
And
Great having Eric.
And Eric, just thank you so much, man. My only other question for you is, can you just give everyone like a 1 or 2 sentence overview of what Sequin does and how they can find out more about it?
Yeah. So Sequin is built to turn your Airtable base and sync it directly into a production Postgres database in real time. So if you are using Airtable and you have a developer anywhere at your company, they will probably love Sequin. It's really built for the parts of your company or your team that are really proficient in coding, and it exposes everything you're doing in your low code, no code, fast iteration Airtable base, and it makes it workable for everyone in your engineering team so that they can access the data they prefer, which is through a Postgres database. And so you can learn more at sequin.io. I would say if you're in the ops field and you're using Airtable and there's an engineer anywhere at your organization, you should point them to Sequin, because those engineers and those product teams can get frustrated when they can't access all the cool data and information you're exposing to your company. And we make that work seamlessly for that engineering and product team. So everything you build, all the interfaces, all the data, all the workflows, everything flowing into your Airtable base is immediately accessed by your product team, by the engineering team, by the data analytics team, all in real time. So thank you for letting me plug that.
Absolutely,
we're really excited by the Airtable community. If you have any questions, you can shoot me a message at any time.
Huge fans, just huge fans. And Shaf, I'll let you wrap it up.
Yeah, no problem. So I just commented again in the comment section asking if anyone else has any questions. If not, where is the best place to reach you, Eric, if you don't mind telling me?
So sequin.io is our website. Just put that in there, and then you can email me at any time at eric@sequin.io. And I'd love to hear from you. If you're building something in Interface, let me know. The other place that I really, really recommend everyone, if you're looking at interfaces, the Airtable community is fantastic. The team there, the community members will answer your questions. I participate a lot in that community. If you have a question about interfaces, drop a line there, or even the no code ops community. And I'm sure someone there has seen what you're trying to do and has built it before. So easy to get help.
Well, folks, this workshop has been truly an amazing one. So thanks to all who has tuned in today. And hopefully you've had an insightful session and took something out of this to help you build a new, to build your first or your next interface on Airtable. Until next time, I guess. Thank you so much, Eric, again for, hosting this with me. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your week. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.
I'm going to stop streaming.